Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to This Just In. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. In these segments, I'll bring you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. As always, we're broadcasting from the This Just In studios on the Business Radio X network, as well as the Healthcare Now radio network. For this episode, my 230th episode, we have a very special show dedicated to the HIMSS annual conference in Orlando. I also have two very special guests on air with me today, my longtime producer, Roberta Mullin from Healthcare Now Radio, and Jim Tate, host of the popular Tate Chronicles. Welcome to the show, my friends.
Hey, Justin. Glad to be here. Looking forward to the discussion.
Justin, it's always great to be with you. I feel like I was just with you, and I was.
You were. You both were, technically.
In person, and then we did the pre-HIMSS show.
Yep. Very true. Well, and I obviously want to get both of your opinions on this, and we're going to do an expanded two-part segment to just to really share a lot of great content with our listeners. I think I just got, so much out of this annual conference. It was just so wonderful, as even my previous show last week, just having everybody together for the first time in a long time. This volume of people. I mean, a lot of us went to HIMSS last year. We obviously did the broadcast live from the conference last year, and this is the first year in 7 years of HIMSS conferences that I did not broadcast live from the show floor. And that was perfectly good. It was great to take a year off. I was happy to do the pre-show, doing the post-show now. But to have, I think the rough number was around 26,000, 27, 28,000. I'm not sure the exact number. You guys actually may know that. But to have that many people, that much energy, everybody ready to collaborate, strategize, share ideas, and just be together. So that was, it was just great. It's been too long, and it was really pent up. So there was just, in my opinion, I felt so much energy. I saw so much energy. Hundreds of friends were there, colleagues through the years. So it was a true success in every way for me. And as you probably have seen and people have heard, at least out of my voice, HIMSS is always what you make it, in my opinion. Even not just this year. This year was like that for sure, because a lot of stuff was preset and relationships to rekindle. But HIMSS is always that, in my opinion, is what you make it, is what you put into it, you'll get out of it. So first of all, Roberta, what are some of your thoughts and reflecting back on HIMSS initially?
So going off of a couple of things that you said, every year in the press, we get numbers of like how many attendees and, stats on what's going on. And this year, either I missed it and I went through all my 500 emails that I didn't read while I was there. It did not come. So I did a little searching and hunting, and the Orange County Conference Center, they actually reported, because obviously they know how many people are coming because it's their place. And they had, in the Orlando News and the Convention Center, had reported they were expecting 26,000.
Okay.
And so I think that's where the people are getting that number, that 26,000, because gotcha. I wasn't getting it from press. I know you, but we both were. Jim, did you get any number from them?
No, I didn't. But whatever the number was, it really seemed for me to add to the value. A few years back, before COVID, when we would have over 40,000 people, especially whether it was the escalators or the exhibit floor, so crowded that it was stressful. I mean, it reminded me, one time I was in Florence, Italy, walking on the sidewalk that was so crowded, and I tripped and fell, but there were so many people, I never hit the ground. It was like a mosh pit. I just got carried along until I got my feet back under. And HIMSS used to be like that.
It was.
I know.
And so just to have elbow room and breathing room, and everybody seemed, people at the booths were more relaxed and had time for more meaningful conversations. I really had
weren't so rushed. People were not as rushed as
Yep.
they usually were there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very true. And I want to dive into that a little bit more because I know we have some thoughts on that. But before I get too far, because my last show I did not get to cover this, and there was some really amazing people who made HIMSS even more successful for me. So I want to give them a quick shout out and give you guys time to think about some people maybe on your end that helped make HIMSS22 successful for you. But I want to say a special thanks to LK and Tiffany there. They were wonderful. They hosted a few of my meetings, very strategic meetings. So I was grateful for them. And they're also strong supporters of this Health Transformation Alliance that we're creating. So many thanks to LK for their generosity. And then also certainly to HIMSS, the organization, and the HIMSS press team for allocating meeting space each day for me. I tend to be high maintenance at times. I got a lot of meetings, high velocity, key people. And Morgan Searles from that team was just terrific. And I'm grateful for her and the entire HIMSS team. So I want to make sure, at the top of the show, I thank them. They were wonderful. So, real quickly, Jim, any special thanks to anybody that helped you outside of Roberta?
Yeah, she kept me going. Well, the HIMSS team, as always, was efficient. Mm-hmm. And one thing I was a little worried about, I didn't make it last year because of where we were in the public health emergency. And so this year, everybody had to have proof of vaccination. Yep. I don't know if they had to have proof of the boost, but some proof of vaccination. And it wasn't too complicated for me, but if you're getting over 20,000 people, and I'm sure having people showing up who don't have the right documentation or whatever, and there was a little surprise in there where we were all expecting to wear masks, but 2 days before the mask requirement was dropped. And just the HIMSS and the folks who were there at the conference center, I never saw any hiccups around, registration or the changes that were going on. So they did a great job.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Completely agree.
Yeah, and I'll just add to the Morgan and her team. Morgan, this is her first year there, so she's in the helm. She's been there for a couple of years, but as the person that was really running it, she did a good job. Always available, and pre-conference, whenever you wrote to them or whatever was going on, always got a response from them. So.
Agree. And a quick response. And then, like I said, back to me being high maintenance, I would email her, try to give her 12-hour notice, but, hey, I got an important meeting. Can you please reserve me an area? And she was always, to your point, responsive within minutes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And obviously had a lot going on at the conference. So, very appreciative.
Justin's high maintenance. Tweet that out.
I think everybody already knows that. That is not news. That is just old.
That's not news.
That's a hashtag.
That's what I kept telling all the vendors. That's not news.
Exactly. But I'm grateful for them. And obviously you, Roberta, special shout out to you. Jim gave me this great award. Actually, thank you so much, Jim, for giving me that award at HIMSS.
Well, it was a press award for, I believe you've been to 22 straight HIMSS conferences. That's correct, isn't it, Justin?
That's correct. Well, not straight, but yes. I started going in 1996, but this is my 22nd HIMSS.
Well, I don't see the pin on you. I'm looking at your
you're right. I'll be honest with you. I pulled the pin out today. I'm like, I'm going to put this on for Jim, but then my dog grabbed it. I can't find it in my house. My wife and
your dog ate your homework.
I knew you were going to say that, and I knew. I'm like, I told my wife, please stop what you're doing. Help me find this black. It's in a black velvet bag. I have a little tiny greyhound. And she took it.
You've earned it, but we don't have a replacement for you. The thing at HIMSS, it sounds like you've been 22 times. I don't know how many times I've been, at least 10. Yeah. And the only times I've missed were COVID related, or I think my son's 10th birthday 14 years ago. But it is the one thing I go to every year.
Yep.
Because everybody that I don't see during the year is most likely going to be there. That's the one chance I have. Just it's about relationships, a lot of it, as well as seeing what's new and trends. But that's why I really go every year, is to see folks I don't see the rest of the year.
Yeah. So, Jim, was the first HIMSS that you went to the one you met me at?
Was that in Atlanta?
That was the first one I went to.
Yeah, it must have been that one. And
Yeah. And then the next one was in Orlando.
yeah, and that first one, yeah, it was right near downtown. I can't remember the circumstances of why we met, but I know you were working on a business plan on a napkin, and I looked over your shoulder and saw it and thought I could probably weasel my way into that action. And
well, no,
and,
we had
and,
met through Twitter. We had met, and you had already done a couple webinars for us.
Yeah,
that's we exactly knew each other. We just had never met in person, right?
That's true.
Right.
So it's a good way to meet people.
There you go.
I met a lot of new people last week.
Yep.
You know, so
yeah, I did too.
As they say, high value targets. I met a lot of those people last week.
Amen. That's great. So let's talk about that for a quick second. What did you guys enjoy the most? So Roberta, what did you enjoy the most about HIMSS22?
So on a big level, it was really just seeing people again, and mostly meeting the people that we started doing business with during COVID. So we only knew them virtually.
Oh, that's
You know, so literally had done several things with them, whatever. And back in the day, like when I met Jim, we didn't do things virtually, but I met him through Twitter. I met him like that kind of stuff. But I think that was most exciting. Data loose people that we had been working with for the last year. And we finally got to meet them in person. So that was my big thing that I liked.
That's really true. I have the same experience, Roberta. Quite a few folks that I've interviewed, I've never met them. And so then you actually get to meet them, and it's a little strange because you already have a relationship with them, and then here they are in front of you, and you're in front of them. So it was a great experience. From that standpoint.
Yeah.
What about you, Justin?
Yeah, I think number one is being together, just seeing everybody, rekindling relationships that I've had for 25, 26 years. I had two very cool business ventures brought my way while I was there from people that I've known for over 20 years, each of them. So, that's very cool. Again, back to what you said, Jim, high value target, high value discussion. So that's very exciting. And then just getting the energy back from our industry. Our industry has so much energy overall, and this kind of recharges us for the year. Each year, that's kind of what I get out of these HIMSS. It kind of recharges me. It highlights really cool innovations. It highlights why we're, global leaders in healthcare, why we're global leaders in technology. So all of that, gets injected into me early in the year, each year because of HIMSS. And I felt that again. And so that was probably what I got out of it the very most. So very cool. And I do want to take a quick moment here. For those that may have joined us late, my two very special guests this week are my longtime producer, Roberta Mullin from Healthcare Now Radio, and Jim Tate, from the host of the popular Tate Chronicles. So welcome back to you both. So continuing on, what was most surprising that you saw at HIMSS this year?
I think Jim and I have the number one thing that was most surprising to us, because we were on the quest for TEFCA and interoperability. Justin, you and I have been talking about interoperability for 10 years now, and we still don't have it. So, but the new TEFCA framework came out just recently within the last month. And so a lot of stuff was going on. If you went into the interoperability showcase, they were talking about it. The ONC was there in full force talking about it, sessions about it. And so Jim and I did this little, SNL skit, it turned out to be, that we would go into these booths and we would talk to the people and everything else. And our last question to them was like, okay, now tell me about TEFCA.
Yep. Uh-oh.
It was an SNL moment a lot of times, right, Jim?
Oh, geez. Yeah, tell me, please.
Well, some people thought it was a trick question. Some people thought it was a town that Roberta lived in.
Is that where you live?
Yeah, but it kind of ties into the history of HIMSS. Very frequently, there's a big theme every year, and I just don't mean the tagline. A couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, it was about blockchain healthcare, and then there'll be a year where there's a lot of emphasis on public health. and or meaningful use, or telehealth was probably really big last year. I wasn't there, but because of the COVID situation. And so there wasn't necessarily, there were a lot of minor themes. To me, probably the biggest thing was the TEFCA sessions. And TEFCA's not a new thing. It's been in the planning stage for over 4 years, and it's a big deal. I'm not saying it's going to bring us interoperability. It's the latest, greatest attempt at interoperability. Time will tell where we go with it. But the fact that a lot of people didn't know anything about it at all was surprising to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, ironically, from that timing, right after I was in the press room meeting with my good friend Anish Chopra, and walk out of the in the press room, walk out of the side room was Mickey Tripathi on his way to his to a big talk. So and Anish starts chanting in the press room when other people were being videoed, Mickey. It was so funny because they're also very good friends. And Mickey, actually, Mickey's a good friend of the show.
Absolutely. The two of them absolutely know what TEFCA is.
Oh, gosh.
I guarantee you.
Yes. Very strong proponents and very happy it's out. And also I love those gentlemen. Great people, great advocates for our industry, been around for a very long time. But that actually, it was kind of funny that you bring up TEFCA just because literally my last brief meeting with Mickey. Anyhow, and actually Mickey's one of the last guests. He's actually one of the last guests on our show last year. Just love him what the work that he does, and always support what ONC is doing. So let's actually dive into that, since there's some cool, let's dive into a little bit what we saw. I also want to talk about maybe this segment, if we can get to it. Maybe we might wait maybe for the next segment as a teaser, some of the predictions. I saw some really cool predictions from Gartner be announced, and I want to talk about that with you guys, and maybe it's a little bit controversial, so it's really cool. But before we dive in, because Jim, you brought up key themes and big themes. I'll start off with some of the ones that I saw and the ones that I discussed with some of my guests, and I think will be even focuses of future shows. But obviously, number one, because also I help operate businesses at times and sit on boards and build companies, workforce challenges. So it's something that's very difficult. It's a key topic for me, very difficult in organizations, and in healthcare, specifically healthcare provider organizations. Obviously, I think up to 10 to 20% of staff have left or resigned from most institutions across the country. That's a significant disruption to their care strategy, how they provide services. So that's a significant issue. And that's obviously provider organizations near and dear to my heart, near and dear to our industry, our country, our communities. However, that's also occurring with digital health companies, innovators, and other healthcare organizations supporting the industry. So it's a significant issue across the board. So I did see that. I'm going to spend some time. Athena actually had some initial tidbits about some strategies that they're talking about. I'm probably going to do a show on that also this summer, of how they're addressing it, how they're tackling it, how they're recommending organizations tackle it. I thought that was terrific. So we talk about it, and how do we actually fix it? What are some best practices? That's what I'm looking to dive in, because it's a C-suite problem. They offer some really cool stuff and how to find it out, how to address it, solutions. I love that. Provider burnout, which goes obviously hand in hand with workforce challenges. I think 50, and I heard this from multiple organizations, up to 50% unsatisfaction or non-satisfaction rate or unsatisfied providers in the industry. They, 50-50 if they're satisfied or not. So that's something that we got to keep a close eye on. And I completely see that. If you walk in and ask a provider, how are you doing? Are you, satisfied, unsatisfied? I believe it's 50-50 on what you're going to get back from response. So that was one of the topics that I saw numerous organizations talking about. Hospital at home, something also near and dear to my heart. And I saw some innovations there, what Mayo Clinic's doing and other organizations. Love that. And obviously, John Halamka is a good, friend of the show. Love what he's doing inside of Mayo, but, this transcends them. And they're helping actually foster a lot of different models and care models there. So I saw a lot of that throughout the booths and the topics and discussions and some of the educational components at HIMSS, which is really cool. Health equity. Obviously, up to, I think, 20% of organizations have health, and maybe about 30% have health equity investments going on, or making sure that their organization has transparency when it comes to health equity and strategies to successfully navigate. So that's excellent. social determinants of health, SDOH, a lot of sessions on that and strategies and technologies to help support that. And also what to look out for in some communities that may not be able to, everybody wants that in some capacity, but they may not have technology infrastructures to manage, to take data around social determinants of health. So that's interesting to learn. And then obviously RPM. So some of the highlights that I saw, remote patient monitoring for those when you say RPM. But Jim, what are some of the things that you saw, key themes that you saw at HIMSS this year?
Well, and I look forward, I guess, to the next segment. Justin, we'll talk in some detail about workforce adjustments.
Cool.
I've been running across some interesting things about that. But in HIMSS specifically, it seems like every third booth talked about AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And it looks like that it has become such a buzzword. It's like a hammer in search of a nail.
Right. Well, that's why I didn't bring it up.
Yeah.
Right.
And it is a real thing. There's no doubt.
Yep.
And it's going to bring a lot of value to healthcare outcomes.
Yep.
But if anybody had even the most remote attachment to it, they would have it on their booth.
Right.
I saw that everywhere.
So true.
One thing I saw I kind of liked, and kind of coming out of COVID, we're starting to see more behavioral health, telehealth, televisit type. Of course, the technology's been there, but as an actual appropriate use case. And it seems like that's working. So I was there. I missed the keynote on Friday. Who was that? Remind me who that was.
Michael Phelps.
Michael Phelps.
Yeah, Michael Phelps. And so he's a big proponent of that. And so it looks like that, some use cases are maybe the silver lining of this COVID business we've been through. And remote behavioral health process maybe part of that. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Roberta, what about you?
So my three key things that I thought that I was always running into was, one, of course, interoperability. Two, there's still a lot of talk about the cloud. Not everybody's still in the cloud, and everybody should be in the cloud, and they're moving to the cloud. So there was still a lot of, I thought that any booth that had the word cloud on it seemed to have more people than the other people. So that, and then same as you, Justin, really, patient, hospital to home. It's a big deal.
Yep. Very true. So in that direction, amazing innovations. So what did you see? So, is it the hospital at home that you saw, or anything that you saw that you were impressed by its evolution? Like, we're actually making traction. We're actually getting traction because, some of these themes we've heard about for a long time, but, anything that you've seen out there that really impressed you from an innovation standpoint? Roberta.
Amazing. Yeah. No, seriously, I didn't see anything that I was saying, wow. The patient hospital to home is an interesting subject, so it had a lot of remote patient monitoring things. The FDA is now certifying these devices that, you can use. So that leads, I guess, to getting paid for monitoring them, that type of thing. And just the delivery care shifting, away from the hospital in every case. And, of course, telehealth has a part of that, gave it a good push, all this remote patient monitoring, but wow, no. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, Roberta, I'd have to agree with you. There was nothing that stopped me in my tracks, except perhaps on Wednesday afternoon, a lot of booths were going to do social hours or happy hours, but they started them about 45 minutes early. I mean, the libations were flowing freely Wednesday afternoon on the exhibit floor. One thing that you mentioned, Roberta, that it's this whole move from episodic care to continuum of care, continuity of care, whatever we want to call it. It's obviously the best care model, but the reimbursement seems to be based on those episodes. And until there's adequate reimbursement for those, remote patient monitoring, as Justin's talking about, or appropriate transfer of care and, all those kind of things, it's going to be difficult without reimbursement kind of tying A to B.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so just in a closing couple of seconds, I think, first of all, I agree with you completely. The regulation is going to fuel a lot of that. We're getting closer. We've expanded the chronic care management payments this year. And I think that we're going to continue to see remote therapy, investments. So I think we're going to continue to see those types of evolutions. And I think my biggest thing, I only got a couple of seconds here, is the hospital at home and just seeing that continue to mature through RPM and other components, AI, a little bit of AI dabbled in there. But I am going to get the hook from Roberta here. So I'm going to wrap the show up now. But please join us next week for our follow-on show. We'll dive in even deeper. But Roberta and Jim, thank you so much. It was great to have you on air. And I truly appreciate you both taking the time out of your busy schedules to join the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
You got it. And thank you to all for joining us today. Please tune in weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. As always, you can track me on Twitter at HIT Advisor and use the hashtag ThisJustinRadio so we can respond to your comments from the show. If you missed any of this episode or want to hear more, all my shows are posted on Apple iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn. Also, check out some of the new content we posted on justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone, and stay safe.